I want to take the opportunity to turn to something a little bit more serious and a little bit more sober because it's not getting anywhere near the national attention that it should be getting. And that is, of course, the horrific fallout from Hurricane Helene. This is visible in my own state of Tennessee, obviously North Carolina and Florida and all parts of the Southeast. My friend Robby Starbuck, another fellow Tennessean, has done really incredible work trying to help out the victims of that hurricane, especially at a time when the government doesn't seem to be doing very much for them, at a time when the media aren't giving them a lot of attention, and at a time when a lot of people who want to give just have no idea how to help these people. Robby, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, Michael.
So, Robby, if you wouldn't mind, can you just give a little background on how you even got involved with helping the victims of this hurricane?
Well, it was actually pretty simple. On Sunday, I was just talking to friends who have family members affected by the storm. And I was frustrated by the fact that so many people were assumed missing and families were worried about their family members being dead because they just couldn't get a hold of them, period. And so I realized connectivity was the first issue. And my mind immediately went to the fact that the federal government had pulled these Starlink deals where essentially Starlinks were supposed to go out to all of the affected states. And at the last minute, the FCC pulled the deal with Starlink and said, no, actually, we don't believe you guys can provide the access that we think that, you need to be able to provide. And so at the end of the day, none of these places got the Starlinks or the broadband access that they were supposed to get. Now, Starlink is able to work no matter what the conditions are, as long as you can see the sky. So I said, you know what, this is unacceptable. We're not going to wait for the government to come in here. And the next morning, I sent out my guys to every Home Depot in Middle Tennessee. They bought every available Starlink, sent them out to East Tennessee, and I coordinated with the elected officials along the way. The local representatives like Jeremy Faison's been very helpful, Jason Zachary. I spoke with Marsha Blackburn, the governor's office, so on and so forth. And we made sure things got distributed to the areas of worst need. So we were getting 911 back online with our Starlinks, fire stations, police stations, community centers where people were going after they lost their homes, things like that. But also things like gas stations where they needed Wi-Fi to get their business going so that they could continue to deliver gas to people. And so we're continuing to do that. In fact, we saw the need was so great and the response has been so wonderful from people who say this has been life-saving for them that my wife and I decided on Tuesday night to buy 20 more Starlinks. And so we bought 20 more Starlinks on top of all the stuff that we already bought out. And we're working with TEMA, Tennessee's emergency management agency, to make sure that goes to the areas that need it most. So that was step one. But then on top of that, we saw the need when my teams got there that there was just a great need for supplies. People needed cleanup supplies. They needed materials. They needed food. They needed clothes. They needed things like underwear and socks, and so we put a list together, and my amazing followers on mostly X, but Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and all those places, they have all made orders at all these different retailers. We found a central hub. It's a church that is able to have deliveries sent to them from all major retailers. It's at 424 Heritage Boulevard in Newport, Tennessee. We're working with all the local officials there, from the federal congressional reps to the local state level reps. And we're making sure everything that goes there is then distributed to other churches across the affected areas in East Tennessee. And so even today, after we get off this interview, I'm sending my production team actually out there as well. I'm not able to go right now because I'm on baby watch. My wife is ready to give birth at any moment. So I've just literally been waiting here. You can't miss the birth of, what could be my last son. So, I'm here for that, but I'm coordinating and doing all that from here and sending my entire team out there on top of the people we already have volunteering.
Robby, that last bit explains everything about why you have been so effective helping victims of this hurricane, because any father knows that while you're waiting for your kid to be born, you've got this nervous energy. There's actually nothing you can do. So probably it's the most productive a guy ever can be. When my first son was born years ago now, three years ago, I finished writing my book actually in the delivery room. I just had all this nervous energy. So now with the confluence of events, it's wonderful that you can put all of that time and focus into helping the victims of this hurricane. One of the big issues I had heard was that roads were just blown away, basically. So we're talking about connectivity. has everyone been reached at this point? I mean, I'm talking about the physical communities themselves, or are there still communities that haven't really been checked in on?
So I can tell you this, there's been a lot of issues with this online where people are conflating what's happening in North Carolina with Tennessee. So I'm going to be really brutally honest here. North Carolina's response to the mountainous regions has been atrocious. I've had people nonstop asking for us to help because their families have not been reached in the mountainous regions of North Carolina. We're working with other teams who are in North Carolina to try to see what we can do. But essentially, the state level response there has left everybody wanting for a lot. In Tennessee, we've had nothing but fantastic coordination with our local officials, with TEMA, with every level of government, and we're doing everything to reach every area. There are a few areas that have difficulties with roads still, and I know that's the focus right at this moment, is to make sure that things are accessible to get them food and get them supplies. So I'm just focused on our end and making sure we get the supplies to the central locations and that we can get things distributed once everything clears up. But we're working essentially right now. Those 20 Starlinks, I actually just emailed with TEMA about 10 minutes before we came on. We're waiting for which areas are still disconnected right now. They're going to get us a list. And that's the priority today, is to make sure we find, even if it's by bicycle, I don't care what it is, we're going to find a way to get it up to these areas. So whatever list they get back to us, we will find a way to get them up and online today or early tomorrow.
You know, Robby, I'm old enough to remember when Hurricane Katrina hit, and it was national and even international news for weeks and months. And this was the worst bungled response to any natural disaster in the history of the world. Another Hurricane Katrina hit just days ago. The only difference I can see is that in the case of Hurricane Katrina, it was poor Black people in a Democrat area that were affected. And in this case, it was, I guess, a wider area, but many poor white people in many conservative areas were affected. And I hate to draw a cynical conclusion, but it just seems to me the reason it's not getting the same coverage is because one is politically advantageous to Democrats, the other is politically disadvantageous to Democrats. You're saying the federal government here had the opportunity to bring these Starlinks to the areas that were going to be affected. They even botched that. They botched the pre-response to the hurricane, the precautionary measures. They botched the response, especially at the state level. Is there going to be any accountability for this?
There needs to be, and it's worse than even what you just said, because there's another couple of very important differences. Number one, we are much more technologically advanced at this point than we were when Hurricane Katrina happened, and there's no excuse for the lack of preparedness on the federal government's part. Secondary to that, another big difference, FEMA has been spending money hand over fist on illegal immigrants in this country, okay? And then they turn around and they've got essentially a plan right now to essentially say, oh, well, we don't have enough money to help people. If you don't have enough money to help Americans, what the heck are we doing handing over millions upon millions of dollars to illegal immigrants through FEMA? Okay, actually, it's billions. So what are we doing handing billions of dollars to illegals when we're now going to turn around to the American citizen and say, sorry, we don't have anything to help you, which is, again, a ploy to then go to Congress and tell the Republican majority in the House, hey, you need to pass us more money, or we're going to go back to those communities and say the Republican House wouldn't give us more money. In my mind, it's a lot like blackmail, because they didn't have a choice in the fact that FEMA went and decided to do this with the illegals, but now they're going to use that and this tragedy to get more money out of them. And so, you know, I think it's dark in a lot of ways. And also, even if you look at the response in North Carolina, well, where is the federal response most prevalent? In Asheville, which is an area where the Democrats need people to vote. Okay, they need people to vote. People can't be lost on the political reality here. Democrats want those Asheville votes because it's a very Democrat voting area as far as the state goes in the next governor and presidential election. So a lot of the recovery effort you're going to see on Asheville. Now, those more rural mountainous regions where things are much more dire, where you hear complaints nonstop right now, those areas are not ones that typically vote for Democrats, okay? And that's not lost on me. So I think, you know, I hate to draw conclusions that this is about politics, but it's hard not to think that it is, you know, and I really wish we could get to a place in this country where natural disasters were just not political, because when we're connecting people to Starlink right now, I don't care if these people vote for an alien in the next election. I just care that there's a sense of humanity here. There's little kids who just need help. They need to know somebody's coming. They need to know that food's going to be there. And somebody needs to fill that gap. And the government clearly on the federal level is unwilling to fill that gap. And I think that's frankly disgusting. So people, at least here in Tennessee, Tennesseans, we're called the volunteer state for a reason. Like, we're going to show up. We are going to have each other's backs. And at the end of the day, I think that's kind of what we have to depend on, is each other.
I think your point also on what Congress is going to do is totally right. Of course, that's what they're doing. A lot of people are making the connection. They're saying, we're giving all this money to Ukraine. Why aren't we giving this money to people in Tennessee and Carolina and elsewhere? But I think your analogy is even more apt because it's an even closer analogy. We are giving money to help foreigners who are in this country, in some cases legally, in some cases they're not even here legally. Regardless, they're foreign nationals who chose to be here, who are getting all sorts of emergency resources on the taxpayer's dime. And I'm not even saying I begrudge them the resources. I think the immigration policy is insane, but I'm not even saying I begrudge them the resources. But at the very least, can't we give American citizens the same treatment that we give Haitians or Venezuelans or people who are crossing into our country illegally, convicted murderers who are coming into our country illegally? And you're absolutely right. The Democrats are going to black that out, and then they're going to flip it, and the blame is going to be placed on Republicans for not signing over even more money that's going to be mismanaged by FEMA and that's going to go to the preferred groups for the Democrats. So it gives you a sense at the political level that this situation is almost hopeless. What are Republicans supposed to do here?
Well, I do want to say something first before we get to that. I do begrudge the resources going to these people who are not American citizens. I'm Cuban myself. My family came from Cuba. If my family could risk being jailed or killed over not supporting communism and find a way to come to the United States legally, and that process took years, some of my family members in hiding as they did it. If they were able to do that, come here, the US government gave them no resources, no handouts. Most of my family did not speak English when they got here. If my family could work, including elderly members, to build a life here, do the right thing, pay taxes, follow the law, assimilate, learn English, be a part of the American fabric of what makes us great. These people certainly can get in line and come here legally, and they can be productive citizens instead of people who essentially are taking from the American people. Americans have been giving their money to foreigners for too long in other countries and people who break into our country. And it's time for there to be a real sea change as to what the citizen expects for the money we pay in our taxes, because it's just gone too far. I mean, if you look back at the founding of our country, this would be a joke. I mean, all the men who really stood up and built this country would be laughing at us if we allowed it to get to this place. And so, that's where our headspace needs to be after this. How do we fix this? Because this is unacceptable for the future. And part of that is what happens in this upcoming election. We've got to get people in office, including at the executive branch with President Trump, who are going to correct things, because we've reached beyond an unacceptable point. We're at this point of just total lunacy. And we need sanity to be reinjected into every single pillar of culture in our country and every single area of government.
I totally agree with that sentiment, Robby, and especially that reaction to just the injustice of it all. Robby, I've got 10 seconds left. Before I let you go and deal with your future baby and help out the victims here in Tennessee, where can people follow you and where can they help?
At Robby Starbuck on X, it's Robby with a Y, and you can help by ordering at any retailer and sending that order to Rep Jeremy Faison, that's Faison, and the address to send it to is 424 Heritage Boulevard in Newport, Tennessee. Any supplies, just use your common sense, that would be helpful in a disaster. You can send them there and they will be distributed among the churches in East Tennessee, and people will be forever grateful for your contribution. And Michael, you were absolutely correct. The nervous energy of myself and every other dad as they're waiting to have a baby makes us very effective as long as we decide there's something to do. Right. Because if not, we feel useless, and we're going to feel useless for a while, even after the baby's born. Like, there's very little for us to do except for look at them and go, oh, they're so cute. Right. So we need a job. This is my job right now, and I'm happy to do it.
That was a good clip. Now hold up, ring the bell, subscribe. Hey. Subscribe to the Michael Knowles YouTube channel, and we'll see you next time.